Good morning and welcome to the Killik and Co market update. It's been a good start to the year for markets despite the situation in Venezuela and a few other political developments. Here's the MSCI World Index since the start of 2026. It's currently up just over 2% on a year-to-date basis. This week, the US Department of Justice has threatened criminal charges against Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve. The charges apparently relate to the cost of a renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings and a testimony that Jerome Powell gave in relation to these costs. Powell has posted a statement on the Federal Reserve website which says, "This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people." Previous public criticism of Jerome Powell by the president has caused a negative reaction in markets because investors have been concerned that the Federal Reserve will lose its independence from the government. So it is a bit surprising that we haven't seen a more negative reaction this time around. A number of other heads of central banks around the world have been speaking out in support of Powell, so it's possible that the consensus is that these charges will not stick. On a related note, the latest US inflation figure was published this week, showing that CPI has remained steady at 2.7% for 2 months in a row. This table shows a breakdown of the different constituents of CPI and how each one has moved over the last year. I've highlighted a couple of items of interest. Electricity inflation is high at 6.7%, and this is likely due to the rise in demand for electricity due to the growth in a number of data centers. And secondly, used car inflation has come down to 1.6%. This was problematically high during the COVID era, so it's good to see a lower number here. The US dollar continues to trade at relatively weak levels. Here's a US dollar index that measures the dollar against a basket of other major currencies. It's a 10-year chart, and you can see the dollar strengthened significantly in 2022. This was due to the US raising interest rates and also a flight to safety following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The dollar weakened considerably last year, and investors are now considering the consequences of this. Some emerging market economies may be beneficiaries of the weaker dollar. It's thought that around 15 to 18% of emerging market debt is denominated in dollars, and these economies will now be experiencing lower interest payments. Here's a comparison of the global MSCI World Index in green to the MSCI Emerging Markets Index in pink over the last decade. You can see the Emerging Markets Index really dropped behind in 2022, and the strong dollar was certainly a factor here. Here are the top countries in the MSCI Emerging Markets Index: China, Taiwan, India, South Korea, and Brazil. Do call us for our thoughts on investing in emerging markets. And lastly, 2 major UK-listed mining companies, Rio Tinto and Glencore, have announced they are in merger discussions for the second time in 2 years. Here's a 15-year share price comparison. I've opted for 15 years because I wanted to show the weakness in the sector that occurred back in 2015. This was due to a slowdown in the Chinese economy that coincided with an oversupply for many major commodities. If this merger went ahead, it would create the world's biggest mining company with a value of over $200 billion. One possible reason for the proposed merger is that both companies are very active in the copper market, and they may be looking to find some efficiencies here. Copper has been in demand of late due to its use in electrification. Here's a 15-year chart showing that the metal has recently reached a record high of over $13,000 per metric ton. It is thought that Rio and Glencore together account for around 7% of the world's copper production. Do get in touch if you'd like to hear our thoughts on this merger. Moving on to have a look at next week, we're expecting results out from Netflix, Rio Tinto, and Freeport-McMoRan, which is a copper mining company. That's it from us. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.